I can't.
Hi, I'm here to tell you what the limits of growth really said, and I will sum this up in 3 major points. First of all, it talked about the size of the human environmental footprint that's been growing from 1900 to 1972, which was the time at which the Club of Rome released this Limits to Growth report. Second of all, I'm going to talk about the capability of nature to accommodate this, and how it's limited, and how we're soon reaching those limits of capable containment. Third, I'll talk about how we will overshoot in about 100 years, continuing at this pace, how we will overshoot in 100 years to this limit, and that is the 3 major points of the Limits to Growth report. Now, as we see at the first graph on the first page, we see how the temperature will steadily rise over the hundreds of years, the scenarios that the Limits to Growth report predicts. And we see that these facts are backed up by the different scenarios they outline. Now, as I previously mentioned, the Limits of Growth report was commissioned by the Club of Rome in 1972. It meant to speak about the environmental maximum capacity that we're currently on our way to reaching if we continue with the first scenario of the business as usual. They're talking about the environmental footprint, a term which means the area needed for one person to produce, consume, and survive in the world today. Now we've seen the exponential increase that's been occurring due to human activities such as consumption and production, and how this exponential increase will continue if we carry on at this rate. It sets the paradigm with these exponential increases and footprints, and then simulates a world using a World 3 computer model outlining 12 different scenarios of how the future will take shape. Moving on to the second page, we see how business as usual scenario is held as the most likely by the report. In this scenario, we continue our current standards, we continue to produce and consume and increase that consumption and production at the exponential rate. Now this would most likely lead to a very sharp decline or even collapse of our ecological systems, our capabilities to produce, consume, and carry on being human civilization as such. Now, an important concept here is the concept of overshooting that I mentioned before, that we're doing too little, too late, that we're going down a slippery slope. And that is the occurrences that we would realize too late what we're standing against and what we're actually what we're actually creating with this problem. Now, one important criticism to note is that the report is not Malthusian per se. It is not advocating that we stop having kids or that we kill poor people. It is rather saying that we must do something to deal with the environmental issues at hand. However, there are also a lot of positive points that are brought up in the different scenarios. For example, the 11th and 12th scenarios both outline some kind of way in which humanity will survive and continue to thrive in a new, better sort of environmentally friendly consumer society. The 12th scenario especially outlines the global equilibrium, which basically states that mankind would be in equilibrium with our environment for all future. Now, this would be reached by different policies that are outlined by the report, such as ideas to protect forests, reducing CO2 emissions to levels below the observation rates of oceans and our forests, moving on to education in environmental questions, also improving health and contraception availability, whilst also working for more equal distribution of wealth and health in the world. Moving on to the last page, we're talking about the final points, how the report mentions that technology will not suffice to only help us achieve this global equilibrium or move towards a better future. We need to have actually a change of mindset, a change of paradigms for us to be able to reach a sustainable future. So, to sum up, we see that the key insights of this report is that there are global environmental limits that set a firm limit to what we can actually achieve in terms of consumption and production with our current standards. Man has an incredible impact, an environmental footprint that is currently quite large and will continue to be even bigger and bigger as we go on. And thirdly, unless we do something quickly, we will have a sustained decline or a complete collapse of human environmental society. Thank you.